Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50 with Dallas and Michael. Dallas, we're back in the podcasting booth for the first
time in the new year.
In 2021.
Hopefully the sound quality is much improved.
Yes, I can see some new equipment around us to Bear Ringer. Look, I say that as if
Mate, you say that as if we just paid them cash and they gave us
full price. We whilst our numbers are growing and they've grown, our listener numbers have grown significantly in 2020. We're not at the stage yet where podcasting
equipment is
just sent to our doorstep.
Not at all.
So,
in fact, if anything, we should be thanking various random mates of mine and my father for helping with the sound engineering and the construction of our booth.
So Dallas's father, just to let you know, he spent about a week of his life in the last week. Mind you, he's retired because of our good work.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So he's got nothing better to do. So Dallas's father set up, just picture a teepee with blankets around it, and that's our podcasting booth. So we're in our office. We're actually in a tent. We're basically in a tent.
Yeah, like a marquee with blankets all over it. Sound
absorbing packing blankets all around it. We've got a light source in here. We've got a power source. Yeah. We have our new Bear Ringer equipment. I always like a good sounding,
like a German sounding name. That's what you want. Yeah. So hopefully the sound is it is improved. If there's anything that isn't right or to anyone's ears, and you have better ideas, if there's any semi-retired sound engineers out there and you think there's a better way that we could be doing things, feel free to let us know.
So during 2020, of course, we released a series of podcasts on a Saturday morning usually, and it was all around where we were positioned in the Covid-19 cycle. Yep. So for any of those listeners that tune into those episodes, you would notice that there was vastly different valuations and times of panic and times of recovery during those Saturday morning podcasts. So, some of those Saturday morning podcasts we did right at the depths, where the markets had fallen. The great companies of Australia and the world had fallen some 37%. Around about March.
And there were days within there where those prices were dropped by 7% in a day, things like that. So really big market moves, which is, as we spoke about when we were recording these, it's normally not something, we don't often talk about market returns on that short-term basis, but it's more a window into the psychology of how people were feeling at that point in time. And as you said, different phases of greed and euphoria and all those, and panic and all those different things that we were seeing playing out in news headlines and in conversations we're having with people. So that's kind of where it gets really interesting is, not just in, percentage returns, that kind of thing, but in how does that feel as a lived experience to go through?
That's right. So we can all say that we've experienced it for 2020 now. And our objective for releasing those podcasts were that not one of our clients or not one of our listeners would panic and get out at the wrong time. So basically that was our motivation behind that. So we can look back now, because 2020 has come to a close.
Yes.
Now, amazingly, the great companies of Australia and the world finished up over 6% in the positive for the whole of 2020. Yeah. And when I say the great companies of Australia and the world, allow me to elaborate a little bit on that. I'm not handpicking the best companies.
No.
We are just saying the largest 200 companies in Australia
Yep.
and the largest 1,500 companies in the world. So if you owned all of those diversified companies.
Yeah. So what we're looking at here is 50% of your money being spread out across the 200 biggest companies in Australia, 50% of your money spread out across the 1,500 biggest around the world. That's what you're saying is if you just, as of the 1st of January, if you had your money invested in that way, that was just automatically diversified across those greatest and biggest companies around the world and in Australia, you just forgot about it, didn't look at anything for that whole calendar year, by the 1st of January 2021, you would have had a positive return of just over 6%.
Of over 6%.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. So
which is amazing.
And that's one of those things where, we've talked before about feeling of human beings. We are attracted to, and we're obsessed with the sudden and the unexpected and the bad as a rule of thumb. And so what when those days where prices were dropping by 7%, for example, or a week where prices were dropping by 10%, that was very salient, very visible. What we haven't seen is what we haven't noticed probably is in the 2 months leading up to those big drops, and in the sort of 6, 7, 8 months afterwards, those steady decline, the steady increases. Is that if you then looked at a graph, what you would see is that from the very depths of where prices got to in March, it hasn't really been any one week where one day where prices picked back up by 7% in the same way, but it's just been consistent little increases over time as more good news comes out, as people start to look back up and think of the future, as we start to think longer term. Prices have just crept up and crept up and crept up, and so that's where we've sort of got to now over the course of that calendar year.
Well, they crept up and crept up and crept up, and then they just sort of paused.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden in November, they just went whooshka.
Yeah.
And we basically had the Australian ASX 200 had its biggest monthly return since 1988 in November 2020.
But I guess the thing about that is, what I find interesting is from the difference between mid-February to mid-March over that 1 month when prices dropped, that was front of mind for a lot of people. I think that was very obvious, very noticeable. You heard a lot of talk about it in the streets, all those sorts of things. In that month where prices boomed and went up, you just didn't really hear much about it.
You didn't hear much, and here's where people who have sold out at the wrong time fall into the second trap.
Yeah.
The second trap is share prices aren't doing anything.
Yeah.
They've partially recovered.
Yeah, and then they're just sitting.
And I'm out. I'm sitting in cash. I've sold out at 36% down or 37% down, or 30% down, or whatever it was. I'm waiting, and the media keeps telling me that there's going to be a second wave.
Yeah.
The media keeps telling me there's going to be a double-dip recession. Yeah. Terminology that we've heard in the past. So at the start of November, I'm still pretty comfortable because things had only partially recovered.
Yeah.
And things in November were at about 90 cents in the dollar. I'm going to go back to cents in the dollar here as opposed to
better way to think of it.
So some people sold out at 63 cents in the dollar, a 37% drop.
Yeah.
They had 63 cents in the dollar converted to cash. Share prices, company prices recovered pretty quickly to 90 cents in the dollar, partially recovered.
Yeah.
Still not back to a dollar in the dollar. And they just paused there for months and months and months.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, in November alone, I look away for a day, I look away for a week, I look away for a month. It's back above the dollar.
Yes.
So it's gone from 90 cents to over the dollar.
Yeah.
And right now it's at $1.06.
Yeah.
So basically, something that started at $1 on the 1st of January 2020 on the 31st of December 2020 was at $1.06, despite all of that volatility during that period of time. And look, if we get, everyone would have seen a bar graph over a long-term period of time. So, am I using the right terminology?
I got no idea. You tell me.
You see
you're painting a word picture.
You see 100 years of returns, and you see a bar that represents the calendar year return for that particular year.
Yes.
So what that bar does not show you is any
volatility.
turbulence.
Throughout that year.
Throughout that year.
Yeah, and that's
the history books are going back. And we'll look at this. And
in 20 years' time, we'll say, what were returns in 2020? We'll go, 6%.
6%. So at no point in the... Yeah. Whereas a line graph will actually show you that.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly... And like I say, even that lived experience of, in 10 years' time, we'll look back at this and go, 2020, when we'll remember, we see the pandemic and that kind of thing, but for many people, they probably won't really remember the volatility of their super balance. It'll just be a thing of, well, I started the year with 500,000 in super, and then I finished the year with 550 because I had a little bit of growth and I had my contributions go in, and 500 to 550. What they won't really remember is what did that feel like on the way through when it had, your balance went from 500, took the long way around, it went to 350, and at that point in time, when you 500 had dropped to 350, you didn't know when that was ever going to recover.
No. And
all the news was negative. All the, as you say, the media headlines there was no positivity around. And it was always, it was at that point in time, and that's what we've been saying all year, and what has worked really well, I think, for our listeners and for our clients, is that we don't know when this will recover, but we know that eventually it will. And that's what's been proven out in a really short amount of time, is that, if you just sit tight, stick to your guns, you'll end up in the position we're back in now.
Look, it's impossible to make investment policy out of headlines, and out of what you think is going to happen. And what I'm talking about there is that people try to get a little bit too tricky, and when things start to drop away, let's even assume no one ever sells out at the top. Let's put that out there, because prices will react so quickly. So the price is $1, and it's not 63 cents because of the fact that there's no bad news out there. As soon as that bad news is released, as in coronavirus is worse than we thought, and it's spread to America, spread to Australia, all of those types of things.
Yeah.
Very, very quickly, that the price was on its way to 63 cents.
Yes.
Let's assume that you got in and got out is the right word.
Yeah.
At ahead of where other people had at 90 cents in the dollar.
Yeah. And that's the dangerous thing, is for a long time you felt like a genius. You felt so smart. You went, I had 500,000 in super. It's dropped to 450,000. I got out now, and it's kept dropping.
Yep.
And all my mates, their super has just kept dropping, and I'm sitting here on the sideline with all my money in super sitting in cash, and I've only lost that 50 grand, and that's sort of what that. And that's kind of what you're getting at there.
Yeah, so people try to make it. People thinking that would think that the markets might be down 40% by year end.
Yeah.
As it turns out, they're up by 6%.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. You can never ever predict it.
Yeah.
So they're thinking that they're actually going to be clever.
Yeah.
We've given up. We just don't think.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say we've given up. We've never tried to make investment policy out of short-term noise, and this is just short-term noise. Yeah. No matter what it is, no matter if it's the global financial crisis, Great Depression, coronavirus, whatever it is, it's short-term noise in the march forward of the great companies of Australia and the world.
Yeah,
they're very, very resilient, and have throughout history managed to overcome any challenge that's been set them.
Yeah.
So we think it's a complete mugs game to try and make investment policy out of that, to try and get out close to the top, get back in at the bottom, or get out even. Well, that's there's no point in even getting out at 90 cents and waiting until it all dies down and getting back in at 90 cents.
No.
If you could, which you can't.
No.
If you could,
but that's a really good.
What's the point of it?
Yeah. That's a really good example of this year has proven out a lot of the things that we've been talking about for a lot of years. And as you say there, what people really want to do is go, my balance has dropped from 500 to 450. I'll get out of my diversified portfolio of these biggest and best companies in Australia and around the world. I'll sit in cash, and then I'll wait, and then I'll get back in. And as you say, they've gone from 500 to 450, and then prices have continued to drop. They've felt like a genius. Now, invariably what happens is, and that's what happened at the very bottom, is that prices pick back up very quickly. And then it's every day is an emotional battle of, is now the time to get back in? I love the term, is this a dead cat bounce? Is this are we going to have a double dip recession? You then create this world of having to worry about something that's completely out of your control, and that there is no way to know in advance what the answer will be. So you then sat there on the sidelines. Now, if you were lucky, maybe you got back in at 90 cents, and say you're 450, you turn straight back into the same amount, and you're now sitting back where you would have been. But I can't, even if you wanted to just minimise the fear or the emotional turmoil for the year, it's not the way to do it, because you spent more time this year panicking and worrying about, are things going to drop? Are they going to go back up? Am I going to miss that recovery? All the rest of it. Whereas if you just had your money invested, stayed fully invested the whole way through, you just don't have to think about it. You just get up, you go to work, you do your thing, you worry about the things you can control, and your super balance does what it does. And you don't have to have any fear of whether the market goes up, down, or sideways, whether the company prices go up, down, or sideways. I don't care. I just get up and I do what I'm doing. I control what I can control. And at the end of this year, you've now ended up in a position where your 500,000 has turned into 550, say, and you just think, what was all the your mates or your people that you hear about who were stressing about these market returns all year? You just think, what was about? You've had it sounds crazy to say it, but you've had a much more relaxed, easy year because you just haven't had to worry about whether to be invested or not.
You're right. And all you had to do, and the goal that we give to our clients is just to stick to their strategy.
Yeah.
So control what they can control. They're all putting in fortnightly amounts. If they get paid fortnightly, or if they get paid weekly, they're putting in weekly amounts to their superannuation as they approach retirement. So our one little takeaway for all of our clients was to don't even look at this, just continue on with that strategy. Just keep buying in. You're buying in at 63 cents in the dollar, and next week you're buying in at 80 cents in the dollar, or 70 cents in the dollar. Yeah. And really, if you look at it now, there just is no other alternative. So I go back to the depths of the global financial crisis 12 years ago, and interest rates on term deposits got up to 6% at the time. Yeah. So we're having a different conversation at that point in time. Yeah. So people sold out of companies, albeit still at the wrong reason. Yeah. And they still missed the recovery. But if you're looking at that year, that
alternative, it was very easy to go. I'll just take the easy 6%. I'll take the safe 6%.
Well, imagine if this 6% return for the great companies of Australia and the world that they produced in 2020, if we go back to the global financial crisis and replicated that, I can't remember exactly what the year-to-year returns were, but someone that had sold out and put their money into term deposits in their superannuation said, big deal, we got 6%. I got 6% this year in my term deposits. Now, they still missed out when the recovery happened, so they did it for the wrong reason. There just is no other viable alternative right now. So at the moment, term deposit and bond interest rates are in the 0.5% range, if you're lucky. So, someone that had sold out, forgetting even selling out at 63 cents in the dollar. If you sold out at $1 in the dollar, which no one did at the start of the year,
you got a 0.5% return.
You got a 0.5% rate of return in term deposits or bonds,
and
versus 6% in the great companies of Australia and the world.
And I think that, again, to some degree, it made it a lot easier for our clients and people we spoke to throughout the year. Was that, I had conversations with people where they were saying, well, this is pretty unpleasant, but what am I going to do? I'm not going to put the money in a bank account. I'm not going to get any return on a term deposit or in a bank account. So we've just got to ride this out. And I think the point that just to clarify, the point that you're making there is not that when interest rates go back up, then it will be a good idea to own cash or term deposits. No. It's just that it's a much easier decision at this point in time. And so it's been a year that has proven exactly a lot of the things that we've been talking about on this podcast for a couple of years now have been borne out this year, which is that you cannot afford to be invested in cash. You cannot afford to have your money in term deposits. You have to be invested in the biggest and best companies in Australia and around the world. And those companies are going to get you where you need to be over the long term, but it's going to come with significant volatility. And the only way to get that long-term return is just to ride out the short-term noise.
It is. And go back and listen to, if you haven't listened to it already, The Shocking Risk of Term Deposits, the podcast that we released recently in January of 21. You can see no one's ever probably told you that term deposits are risky and that term deposits income fell by 94% over a 30-year period from 1990 to 2020. But that's we won't go too deep into the differences between those two, because that podcast does that.
So I think that's probably a good place to wrap up. It's as you said, just a recap of those returns for the calendar year, which I know myself. This is what we do day in, day out, and I was still blown away when I saw that that's what that return had been for the calendar year. If you just invested that money at 1st of January, left it the whole way through, that's where you'd end up. I was really surprised by that, and so we wanted to sort of release this as a bit of an update to let people know where things are sitting, and just to hopefully give people a bit of a sigh of relief that if you manage to just stick to your plan, stay fully invested, not make any mistakes throughout the year, already your good decisions and your work there has been rewarded. So for anyone who's listening who's done that, well done. And it's been great evidence that if you stick to that plan, you will achieve the results you need.
Thanks for listening, guys. And one other thing that I'll just add in there as well is thanks for your support during 2019 and 2020. As 2021 starts, we are really, really keen to continue on with Money Over 50. We're not going anywhere, which is great. Which is really, really good. If we could ask for a favour, if you do enjoy the podcast, which I assume you do if you're listening at this stage, can you jump onto iTunes or whoever you use as a podcast provider and give us a rating? 5 stars will do. In case you're wondering if we want 4 or 3 or 5 will just be fine. You don't necessarily have to make any comments, but that would help as well. But just really, really quickly, if you can jump on there, we want our podcast Money Over 50 to flash up when someone is searching for
new podcasts,
for new podcasts and things like that. So if we could ask of that one favour, that would be much appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. We look forward to catching up again soon.